worlds without masters. Across the galaxy, human worlds were forced to choose. Some pledged loyalty to Terra out of tradition or fear. Others aligned with Horus, believing reform preferable to stagnation. Many attempted to remain neutral, declaring independence under the assumption that the Imperium would not endure. Few of these worlds survived intact. War did not respect neutrality. Fleets stripped planets of resources. Populations were conscripted or culled. Infrastructure built over generations was dismantled to fuel a war that offered no future. The Imperium had once promised order. Now it delivered only survival. The warp unbound. As conflict intensified, the barrier between reality and the immaterium weakened. Rituals once conducted in secrecy became common practice among the traitor forces. Sorcerers replaced librarians. Demonic manifestations ceased to be anomalies and became tools of war. The warp responded eagerly. Storms engulfed entire sectors. Time fractured. Worlds experienced decades of war in a matter of months, while others remained frozen in a single night of terror. Even loyalist forces were not untouched. Desperation led to compromise. Forbidden weapons were deployed. Psykers were pushed beyond safe limits. Survival justified excess. The Imperium's denial of gods became increasingly untenable. For the galaxy itself now bore witness to powers that defied reason. Figures of ruin. In this chaos, individuals rose whose actions shaped the war's course. Primarchs clashed upon ruined worlds, their battles reshaping continents. Each encounter left scars not only upon planets, but upon the future of the Imperium. Some sought redemption. Others embraced annihilation. A few attempted to preserve fragments of honor within a war that no longer recognized such concepts. Their motivations varied. Their consequences were universal. Where a Primarch walked, worlds burned. The march to Terra. As years passed, Horus consolidated his forces. His strategy was not conquest, but decapitation. The Imperium could survive the loss of worlds. It could not survive the loss of its center. Terra became the objective. Along the path toward the throne world, systems were annihilated not for necessity, but to ensure no pursuit could follow. Loyalist resistance was crushed with overwhelming force or bypassed entirely. The traitor fleets advanced like a closing tide. And Terra, isolated and silent, prepared for a siege that would determine the fate of humanity. The Imperium in ruin. By the time the war reached its final stages, the Imperium was no longer whole. Its armies were exhausted. Its leadership fragmented. Its ideals compromised beyond repair. Even if victory could be achieved, it would not restore what had been lost. The war had already succeeded in its true purpose. It had broken the Imperium's belief in itself. Stillness before the end. As fleets gathered around Terra, the galaxy held its breath. Billions of lives waited in uncertainty. The outcome of the coming confrontation would not merely decide who ruled, but what kind of Imperium would remain. The silence before the final battle was vast. And within it lay the knowledge that nothing, regardless of outcome, would ever be the same again. The approach to Terra was neither swift nor uncontested. Though the War Master commanded vast strength, the final advance unfolded with deliberate restraint. Horus understood that Terra was not merely a world, but the symbolic heart of the Imperium. To strike it blindly would invite chaos within his own ranks. To encircle it was to apply inevitability. Thus, the traitor fleets closed in slowly, dismantling what remained of Imperial defense in measured stages. The void around Sol became a battlefield of attrition. The Sol system fortified. Terra had long been prepared for war. Orbital plates, defense moons, and ancient weapons ringed the system. Mars, still bound by oaths of allegiance, stood as both shield and forge. Saturn's moons bristled with void fortresses, each capable of annihilating fleets. Yet these defenses had been built for external threats. They had not been designed to repel half the Imperium. The traitor armadas did not rush the gates. They tested them. They measured response times, munition expenditure, and command cohesion. Each engagement drained the defenders further. Time became a weapon. The loyalist burden. Within Terra's walls, command fractured beneath pressure. The Emperor remained silent upon the Golden Throne, consumed by a task none fully understood. Strategic authority fell to his remaining loyal sons and to generals who had never imagined such responsibility. Every decision carried irreversible consequence. Reinforcements were scarce. The warp was hostile. Fleets that should have answered Terra's call were scattered, destroyed, or trapped beyond reach. Those who remained knew they would not be relieved. They would endure alone. The Imperial Palace. The palace was not a single structure. It was a continent of stone, metal, and void-shielded bastions. Walls rose higher than mountains. Gun emplacements formed layered horizons of death. Beneath it lay vaults older than recorded history, containing weapons never meant to be used. The palace was built not merely to defend the Emperor, but to endure the end of the world. As the siege began, its defenses awakened. Macrocannons thundered. Void shields flared against impacts that could fracture planets. The sky burned continuously, illuminated by war without pause. Yet even this was not enough. The nature of the siege. The Siege of Terra was not a single battle. It was a grinding erosion. Traitor forces landed in waves, establishing kill zones and beachheads amid ruined districts. Each advance cost them dearly, but cost the defenders more. Civilian populations were consumed in the crossfire, their presence irrelevant to strategy. There was no retreat. There was only holding ground until it ceased to exist. The palace did not fall quickly because it could not. It fell slowly because everything does. The warp within the walls. As the siege dragged on, reality weakened. Demonic entities manifested openly within the lower levels of the palace. Corridors shifted. Time distorted. Soldiers fought battles that reset themselves, reliving the same hours until death or madness claimed them. Faith emerged where denial had once ruled. Some defenders prayed. Others simply endured. The Emperor's presence was felt more strongly as the warp pressed inward. Whether this was protection or proximity to catastrophe could not be discerned. Only that something vast was being held at bay. The Primarchs at war. Within the siege, the remaining Primarchs took to the field. Their clashes were no longer about territory. They were confrontations of ideology made physical. Each encounter tore sections of the palace apart, reshaping the battlefield beyond recognition. Some sought their brothers to end the war through finality. Others fought merely to delay the inevitable. Each victory cost irreplaceable strength. Each death narrowed the future. The breaking of the defenders. Weeks became months. Months lost meaning. Supplies dwindled. Ammunition was rationed. Entire regiments were reduced to memory. Command structures collapsed as leaders fell faster than replacements could be appointed. The defenders did not ask if victory was possible. They asked only how long they could deny defeat. And even that question faded. The Warmaster's final gambit. At last, Horus altered the rhythm of the war. He lowered the shields of his flagship.